All right.
That better?
Yes. Hi. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday with Dr. Adrian, Black on the Block, and my very, very special guest, Dr. Iris Cooper. I'm so glad that you are here. We were running our mouths, and that's why we are late. But I promise you that this conversation will be well worth our tardiness, and I am certain that you will get a wealth of information from this awesome, awesome woman. Thank you for joining us. You know, I started Black on the Block because we are in this time period. I'm someone that has always supported Black businesses, but I think that with the whole Black Lives Matter movement and just where we are in our world with this pandemic and the shutdown and all of that, this is no better time for us to figure out how do we identify and support Black-owned businesses? How do we create economic wealth inside of our own communities? And just how do we just support each other? So that's the whole mission of this. And thank you for tuning in for Wisdom Wednesday. And I want to introduce my guest because I want us to get into this conversation because she is a wealth of knowledge and I want her to share it with us today. So Dr. Iris Ann Cooper, better known as Dr. I. She is the owner of Just Ask Iris, an entrepreneurial coaching firm specializing in food, enterprises, and products. Dr. Iris is founder of Glory Foods, a multi-million-dollar food marketing company, and has launched several successful enterprises during her career. She is recognized nationally as a business strategy and branding expert, having coached many startups to sustainability. Dr. Iris is the former director of the Ohio Division of Entrepreneurship and Small Business, where she led the state from 29th worst place for small businesses in 2007 to the 9th best in the nation and first in the Midwest in 4 years. Dr. Iris recently received the Amos Lynch Legacy Award from Champions of Diversity and the Sharon Burke Soar Award from Franklin County Children's Services for her advocacy work in Central Ohio. She's a published author, featured writer, and keynote speaker on a variety of topics, and an adjunct professor at Franklin University. A domestic violence survivor, Dr. Iris concealed her abuse for over 12 years until freedom appeared. When the Devil is Beating His Wife, a Christian perspective on domestic violence and recovery, co-authored with Melanie Houston, provides a fictional account of 3 male victims with resources and advice on safety starting life over. Her contributions to entrepreneurship are now included in the History Maker collection at the Smithsonian Institute. She is a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the National Coalition for 100 Black Women, Central Ohio chapter, and the Indiana University Alumni Association. Dr. Iris holds a BA in journalism and an MBA in marketing from Indiana University. She also attended Fisk University, and her DBA is from Walden University in entrepreneurship, and her doctoral study focus was on small business mortality and entitled The First 4 Years, a Small Business Sustainability Study. And she also has a daughter.
I do, and a son.
Who is our Sarah. Right?
She is. She sure is.
And 2 fur babies.
And two lovable fur babies. Yes. They wanted to be here with me tonight, but I didn't think it was appropriate.
Well, listen, your 2 and my 2 would have taken over the entire.
That's right.
Thank you so much for being here. And you know, I have questions on questions on questions. And because you are a blessing and allow me to be a small portion of your life, you know, I get to pick your brain sometimes. But one of the things that I was told to say to you,
okay,
my baby, my youngest son, who is a rising junior at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
He said, when I told him that you were going to be on the show, he said, Mommy, he said, Dr. Cooper, the Glory Foods products, the Glory Foods that we grew up on, those collard greens. I said, yes, those. He said, please let her know she is a staple in the Black household.
Oh, thank you.
She certainly was in our household. So I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And I'm glad to be here. You
Yeah.
are a blessing to your clients because you're an
Well,
empath, you know?
yes. Listen, look, and that's a whole something else that we share.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
so
Mhm.
tell everybody, how did you get started with Glory Foods? Where did it come from, and how did it come about, and how did you do this?
Well, actually, I grew up in Evansville, Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
but my mother was from Como, Mississippi,
Mm.
and my father was from Union City, Tennessee. They both went to HBCUs, never finished, but they got married, and we ended up in Evansville. And my father was determined that we were going to bring all the soul food with us. Even though my mother wasn't really feeling it, she went along with the program. So we had greens, fresh greens. Seemed like 2 or 3 days to wash them and clean them and cook them for Sunday. We had black-eyed peas, of course, on New Year's Day. We had all the traditional foods.
Right.
But as a little girl, and I'm looking at her doing all this work, I was like, I don't get that. I don't want to do that. I want to do like on TV where you call somebody, they just bring it to you. So
Right.
I never grew up with that love of culinary skills. My father wanted it, and he wanted it so bad that when he wanted to cook chitlins, she sent him to the garage with a hot plate and the chitlins. And he sat out there in the garage, cooked his chitlins in the hot sun. So, at any rate, I grew up with the traditions of Black people in the South. Didn't carry them forward, but I ended up being recruited to come to the Lazarus department store chain in Columbus, Ohio, when I was in graduate school. I was a student of Charles Lazarus, who was instrumental in the Federated Department Store chain, and he was an adjunct professor. He came over from Bloomington once a week and taught an MBA class in marketing distribution. The only Black woman in the class, sat in the front row and the third seat every week. You weren't going to miss me. You were not going to miss me. And every question I was going to answer and answer right. And so after classes were over, he said, Ms. Cooper, are you planning to take a job somewhere after graduation? I said, of course. And he said, well, I'd like for you to come and see my store. I said, okay. So I hopped on a little tiny plane from Indianapolis. I think I flew from Bloomington to Columbus. And it was as if Cinderella went to the palace. When I walked in that store and saw the drama and the fantasy and the people, I mean, the mannequins, I could hear them talking to one another. It was so exciting. And the music, I fell in love with the ambiance. And so when he asked me to come and work at the department store, I said yes. No considerations. Little did I know that the first part of my orientation was going to be learning the backside of the industry, and that's the warehouse. Okay. So here I am with an MBA thinking I'm just the cat's meow.
Right.
And I end up in the warehouse, the dirty, stinky, dark warehouse, working, putting together returned items, sending them back, going to different department managers, trying to understand the logistics. It was horrible, but it was very, very good training for me.
Right.
I was so happy to get out of there in 3 months. I didn't know what to do. And so I spent some time on the floor selling. And then out of the blue, he comes to me and says, I have a project for you. And I said, well, what's that? He says, I want you to be the marketing manager for the restaurant division.
Wow.
I'm 23, Dr. Adrienne.
Wow.
I'm 23.
Wow.
I said, sure, I'll do that. So I jumped into it with both feet. I lived it. I dreamed it. I made a lot of enemies, asking questions, changing things, bringing in promotions, speakers.
This was marketing social media.
Absolutely. I brought in a French chef and we had French food. I mean, I started up new restaurant concepts. And so I was able to really display my branding capabilities. So, any rate, fast forward, Federated takes over Lazarus and a number of other uh, successful department stores, and they're without a job because the food division became all standardized. So I go to Los Angeles, California to see how the rest of the world lives. Spent some time out there in banking. Um, the best mistake I ever made was to go work for a bank. However, I came back to Columbus 4 years later, and my partners, the people that I worked with at Federated Department Store with all this food marketing opportunities we had, came to me and they said, Iris, we want to get into the grocery store business with soul food. I had a flashback of my mom cleaning them greens for days or weeks, it seems like. I said, oh no, not happening with me. I said, if you want me to be a part of it, it's got to be a different process. This is the 80s, Dr. Adrian. Women were working every day, taking care of families. I had a 2-year-old at this point. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, if you can change the process of cooking greens and make it greens for dummies, people that don't have a whole lot of time, they don't want to learn a whole lot of new culinary skills. In the evening, I got about 30 minutes to get dinner on the table so I can have some time to myself. So we agreed that they would go ahead and go off into the kitchens and figure out a way to pre-season greens before they were cooked and cook them in mass. I was going to go away, do the marketing research, do research on the branding, the history of the products, and all those qualitative things that I love so much. Well, they got it done. They worked with the Ohio State Technology Center to find out how do you do that. Had never been done before. Vegetables were in a can, just blanched. There was no seasoning, nothing. But we together figured out a way to season the vegetables, take the guesswork out of cooking, black-eyed peas, greens, okra. We had hot sauce. We had 13 items to start off. And I brought the branding and the personality to the company. So that's how Glory Foods came. I was the only woman with 3 hard-headed men, but we got it done. And we opened in a Kroger store 2 years after we were accepted by the Kroger people to bring the products into the company.
And you know what's interesting is that the very first time that I had Glory Greens, I was at an event and the caterer had used Glory Greens.
Why not?
But you know, of course, that was not something they were publicized.
No, I understand.
I was like, oh my God, these greens are so good, you know. And so I kind of kept asking the catering staff, I said, you know, who cooked the greens? Who cooked the greens? And so one of the young ladies that was there working, you know, younger girl, she probably got fired that day, but she said, these are Glory Greens. And I was like, what are Glory Greens? She was like, they come in a can. And I went out and I looked for them. And that's when I started serving my kids and my family Glory, you know, because like you said, it was convenient. When you didn't have a lot of time to do the process. I'm from Alabama, I know how to fry collard greens in a black skillet. So, you know, but when you are working and you have children and you have a career, you don't have that kind of time. So, okay, so go on with the story.
Well, we were very intentional with nutrition and targeting the Black female who was working but also had a family. The greens had no meat in them. They had meat flavoring, but we didn't want to get into that high blood pressure and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Everything had reduced sodium because we can't do a whole lot of salt either. And we picked the 13 items that we thought would be most popular with the Black female shopper. To our surprise, after Black women heard about what we were doing, they went to their stores and said, get Glory Foods in here. Now, we had done some testing in the grocery store market, but once they tasted it, they went to their grocery stores demanding the product. So we had assistance in developing our market share. And then, of course, the blessing was we never even thought about the white female.
Mm-hmm.
My branding technique is to pick the exact customer that's going to buy this product.
Mm-hmm.
We are matching the likes and the dislikes and the demographics and all of that. But little did I know that in the South, the white women were sick of peeling cleaning greens and cooking them for days and days. And they became our secondary market. And so it grew from there. Over the years, it had some frozen food offerings. It expanded in some areas and retracted as times changed. It was started in 1990. I believe it was 89 or 90. Yes, 90. And so now, this is 2020. It's not owned by the same people. We sold it in 2010. But the product, the brand, the value proposition is still the same. It's nutritious soul food for those people, Black and white,
Mm-hmm.
that like Southern cooking.
Right, right. You know, a lot of times, like I have a high school classmate, she's a soror, I would call her a friend.
Mm-hmm.
She is doing vegan baking in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think about people who are just getting started, who might like to dabble, you know, cook in the kitchen, that sort of thing, and don't necessarily see this as something that they would do long term or it going mainstream. And
Mm-hmm.
so someone approached you, and that's how you kind of fell into it, I guess. But what advice would you give for somebody who really wants to take their product, their food product, mainstream?
You cannot undervalue marketing research.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear people say, "Oh, everybody loves my peach cobbler."
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's impossible.
Because everybody had it.
Right, only that, but diabetics don't love peach cobbler. People that aren't sugar addicts don't love peach cobbler. And so I tell my clients that don't spend any marketing money until you've done the marketing research to confirm that there is a customer out there that wants what you have, and there's enough of them to start a business.
Right.
And so I warn people, marketing research may cost you something, but it is worth its weight in gold, because then you know you've got data that can tell you where these customers are. What do they do every day? Do they work? Do they stay home? What do they do in their leisure time? What values do they have? You need all that information to develop the brand. And a lot of businesses don't want to do that. So they're so anxious to get it out there. And then they find out that customer was really fickle and's gone on to something else, or some other substitutes or whatever. And then they're not as successful as they thought they could be.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and everybody that can cook does not have a product that can be mainstream. You know?
Absolutely.
You might be cooking at the family reunion and everybody, you know, likes your macaroni and cheese, but that doesn't mean that it is the product that everybody else is going to run to. So let's get into the discussion about your personal life. Because a lot of people don't know that you are a survivor of domestic violence. And so that was something that I knew because you were supposed to be on the radio show. And I'm just thankful that you agreed to come on here. So this is better because everybody can see your face. But let's talk a little bit about that and, you know, how you overcame that and what that process looked like for you.
Well, interestingly enough, it was simultaneous with the Glory Foods introduction. As I said, I was a career woman, a banker when I came back to Columbus. I was married. I had community responsibilities, had children, and I had a troubled relationship that I kept secret for 12 years.
Mhm.
And women do that. And I'm
Yes,
sure some do that too, especially when you're a vice president of a bank, you're the board president of the Head Start organization. You've got all these accolades from people that admire you and respect you and support you. And if they knew who you really were when you took the mask off when you went home,
Mm.
you'd be a fake. And I felt that for 12 years that I was a fake. I was great with my job and the community. But when I would go home at night and I'd pull into the garage, I'd turn into a whole different person, just trying to get to the next morning. And it was very difficult to keep it secret. Um, but you do get to a point where the unknown is more attractive than the known, and you're willing to risk what you have achieved for something different.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what happened to me. I got to a point where uh, I just knew something tragic was going to happen if I stayed any longer, which is why I chose the title of the book.
Mm.
Now, you know, you're from the South. When the devil is beating his wife, what does that mean, sister?
Rain.
It raining in the sun and shining.
Yes.
It's a paradox. It's
Right.
conflict. You look up and you say, oh, it's a beautiful day, but here's a thunderstorm. That's how you are when you are living a life of violence. You smile during the day, but when you get home, there's a thunderstorm getting ready to erupt. And fortunately, after 12 years, I was able to leave. My children came with me, and we started over. And I came clean with everybody, including, let me tell you this little story real quick. I even told the president of the bank, because I didn't want him to hear about this big drama divorce going on. And he said, well, Iris, is there anything I can do for you? And this is a white guy.
Mhm.
I said, well, I would like to have a home for my children. And I said, but I know that in the middle of a divorce, you can't really do that. And he says, oh, I'll take care of that. He called up the head of the mortgage department right while I was sitting there. And he told him, he says, I want you to take a mortgage application for Iris. And don't ask her any more questions. Just get the mortgage and have the payment taken out of her checking account every month. And we're going to put it on our books.
Wow.
Just like that.
Wow.
God came into that room, put those words in that man's mouth. And guess what? He was transferred 2 months later.
Wow.
I had already closed and moved in.
Wow.
So I had a wonderful career in banking. I met wonderful people of all different nationalities, different walks of life. I certainly had some resistance from the good old boys, being the only Black woman commercial banker
Right.
in a lot of settings. But the upside of being the only one is I had to be 100% every single
Every
day.
day. Every day.
Every day. Don't come up with a question that I can't answer. I'm ticked off
Mhm.
when my loan presentations are up there. My
Right.
goal was to have everybody speechless when I was done.
Mhm.
And so I had a very strong affinity to banking and to sharing what I've learned with my community.
Mhm.
So I started, writing articles about financial literacy and telling what I had learned in the banking industry to other Black people, to women, to minorities, helping them get on their feet. And just like an empath, I was happy when they got the keys to the house or
Right.
started up the business or whatever. And so it was just wonderful. But, then came the recession and things changed.
So, in terms of your support system, how important was that and the tribe that you had around you in terms of the rebounding? Because as you said, you were a rock star in your career. And, I now am thinking that this is why God put us together, because,
Mhm.
you know, we have some similarities in terms of when you're dealing inside of an unhealthy relationship and nobody knows, and
Right,
you
right.
are continuing to perform and raise children and go to work because you know that to stop means you probably won't survive and your kids won't either. And so you kind of just keep pushing through it. And I know for me, my tribe was critical when I let them in, because that was not until I was getting ready to go through a divorce. And so, you know, mine was 29.5 years of
Wow.
living. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
Yes, I did have support, and I would have had more support had I been transparent, but I was not transparent. But my close friends knew by expressions on my face, by rejecting offers to go shopping or go to the movies or whatever. Didn't invite anybody over to the house. I mean, I think that they knew. And then when I called them, when I left and had found a place to live, um, 3 or 4 of them showed up at my door with everything you could think of: blankets, dinner, food, cookware, just like it was a homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still friends with these women because they read between the lines. They knew that I had nothing. And I mean, because we literally left just in an hour, gathered everything we could to get out of there, my daughter and I. And they came, and they are still close to my heart. I talk to them, if not every day, every other day. So yes, a support system is very important. And I understand, and I'm sure that victims understand why you don't share all the down times with them. But it wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy for me. And you know, in hindsight is always 2020. I should have recognized that earlier, but I didn't. And you move on and you learn from your mistakes, and that's what happened.
And you know, with that, I think that we go through what we go through because of moments like this, because there's somebody else out there that can benefit from your story. As successful as you are, you went through some things that were a part of your journey, but they did not define who it is that you became and who you are becoming. And so I just am a firm believer that we have to go through what we go through so that we can be the light for other people. You know, sometimes when you're in the midst of some mess like that, you don't recognize it. When that's not what you grew up seeing, you don't really understand it each and every day yourself, let alone being able to explain it to somebody else. And so you recognize that, okay, this is just a part of, you know, what I went through. And so, you know, at this age and stage, what we can probably say without a shadow of a doubt is that we would never experience that again.
That is true. That is
Right.
true.
Right, because when you learn and you grow from the lessons that are inside of it. So let's go back to now the businesswoman that you are, so successful. So after the Glory Foods piece, which is a huge piece, it's a huge piece. Then what? Because you are a professor and I mean, you do so much stuff.
Let me tell you about how Glory Foods ended up being transparent. I was the only female with 3 men.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 African Americans, myself and the president, and 2 non-African Americans that were more traditional male managers. So I became a threat with my marketing ideas. And I was the president's choice to be the head of the company. I was the target customer, the Black female that had a career and had children and family, and you know, could do both. But because of my personal life, that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to be able to do the traveling and the speaking and the long hours because I had children, and I understood that, but they didn't. And so it became kind of contentious with me not being able to give 100% to the company because I was still working at the bank, still raising children, still, in a relationship. And eventually, they bought my shares. Well, actually, what happened was because of the divorce, they acquired the shares that my ex-husband would have received because they were afraid that they would lose control of the company because the divorce was going to be messy and nasty. And that's what happened. So I never really exited the company, but I did marketing for them, but I was no longer the day-to-day because of the divorce. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then the next part of your life was
Banking, community development, learning everything I could about economic development. Banking was the best mistake I ever made because my parents, I don't think collectively ever earned over $25,000 together. My dad was a chauffeur, and he went from the garage into employment during the civil rights era when they were looking to integrate. And he had enough charisma and charm that he was perfect as a chauffeur. But little did they know that while my dad was driving that limousine with the rich white people in the back, he was listening to every word they said. He knew languages, he knew economics, he knew history, because he was a student driving that limo. And then my mom, she's probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. Even today, never finished college, but just innately smart. Like, how you have an algebra problem and you can't get it on, so I'm forgetting, I'm going to bed. Well, when I'd get up in the morning, my mom stayed up all night trying to figure that problem out because she loved math. And so I wanted to continue working in the financial world to share what I had learned about investments and borrowing money and just everything that they didn't want you to know about and making money and saving money and interest rates. I wanted everybody to know. So that's where Just Ask Iris came to be.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. All right.
So tell everyone about Just Ask Iris.
Just Ask Iris came in the banking world. Whenever somebody wanted to know something and they didn't know where to go for the answer, they said, "Go ask Iris over there. She's over there. She'll figure it out. She'll find out what you want to know." And so I didn't want to let them down. And I enjoyed learning anyway. So I got that name, Just Ask Iris. And so I began to write an article in a local Black paper called Just Ask Iris. And I'd write about mortgages, and I'd write about stocks, and I'd write about interest rates, and I'd write about negotiating. Everything that I was learning, I tried to pass it on. And from the newspaper came the radio show, Just Ask Iris. On Friday mornings, I do the same thing. Just sharing information so maybe they could take what they heard and benefit from it. Because, there weren't many people, Black people in banking in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And I was the only Black person for a very long time, Black female on the street. Just a funny story, when I came to Columbus and I went to a reception for the bank that I was working for, and I was about 7 months pregnant. Only Black female in there and one other white woman. And I don't know why they even invited me, other than they just thought it would be rude not to invite me. So I'm standing up there, and the president, he doesn't know what to say to these other people. He says, "So here's Iris, and she's 7 months pregnant." I wanted to just fall over dead. I said, I couldn't have thought of anything to say other than that. But you went through a lot during those years, breaking through stereotypes and putting yourself in positions of that you could be ridiculed or taken down. I had one situation where I was accused of protecting my Black clients and my female clients.
Mm.
There was a workout guy that had been hired to the bank to collect on delinquent loans. And so he came to me and said that he wanted to review all of my files.
Mm.
And he's not even an officer. I said, excuse me, you don't have to do that for me. And he was talking on the phone to another employee, and his Black administrative assistant heard him call me a Black bitch.
Oh.
Do you know she got up from her desk and told me, she says, I'm going to HR.
Mm-hmm.
She went to HR and they got rid of his behind before that.
Wow.
But that was the kind of climate it was back then. Some people just weren't used to having Black women that were articulate, that were professional, and just weren't going to go just roll over and play dead. And so, racism exists everywhere, and they'll try to keep information from you. We see that today.
Yes, we do.
I'm amazed at what I don't know about the government.
Yes.
And the evil.
It's in every industry, though. It's in entertainment. It's in politics. It's in education. It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I was thinking about here in Georgia. Representative John Lewis is lying in state at the state capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the news came on today, and they said he is the first African American to ever lie in state in the state capitol. And I was like, it's 2020 and we are still talking about first for Black.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I cringe every time I hear the first Black, because I'm like, the world has existed for a very, very long time. And we are still fighting to find our place in the world. And some of us don't realize that. They think we've arrived because you got a car and a house somewhere, and you think that we have not arrived. We are so far from arriving.
We don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
And I mean that sincerely.
Yes.
I, for one, I'm mad at myself because I was so naive about the FOP.
Mm.
The police union.
Mm-hmm.
We were brought up to believe that every policeman was our friend.
Right.
And that you were in trouble, you called the police.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not. Maybe you don't call the police, depending on who the police is.
Right.
I had no clue that it was the organization that it has turned out to be.
Wow.
History. We're still out of the history books, Dr. Adrienne. Only Martin Luther King and the ones that are so much celebrities that they can't ignore them. But we're still not integrated into education.
No, we're not. And that's the part that makes me sad, because people don't recognize it, which is why I think Black on the Block is so important, because if we ever learn to support and lean on each other, and I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge, because I think about the disparity, even with what's going on with this pandemic. I know business owners who say that they have applied for these PPP loans and all this sort of thing, who have legitimate businesses, yet they're not being approved. But you have people who don't have legitimate businesses, and somehow they're getting $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. And, so we still have
that. Dr. Ada, it's worse than that. It's so bad. And I can tell you, from my perspective as a former banker, a banker is compensated on profit and income.
Mm-hmm.
So the customers that have big balances in their checking account and big loan balances that the bank is making a lot of money on, they get all the sweet deals. They hear about everything first.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to keep those customers in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So mom and pop, they're the last people that hear about anything, and that's institutional discrimination.
Right. Right.
It's based on profit, and as we know that we're not in a position to be the most profitable companies in the bank when we're still trying to get a line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just we have not been treated fairly.
So
This whole process.
what do we do, Dr. Cooper? I just recently, I shared with you that I took a mini vacay, staycay, and so watched The Banker, which I had seen the advertisement for the movie, but had not had an opportunity to see it. And so while I was away, I saw it, and I was like, there are so many people that don't even recognize that this was around, that this happened, this is real. We've had power before. We've had economic power before, and it was lost or it was stolen. And what do we do to get it back? How can we, as a group of a group of people, come together collectively so that we can rebuild this structure and have true economic power?
It's a question of, can we bring all of the generations to the table? That's one of my goals right now. I know that I'm not going to be here forever. And I know I say it too much to my children, but I need you to listen to me. I need you to watch the news. I need you to understand what I'm telling you about banking and real estate. And you've got to be on your game all the time. And I think I'm a baby boomer. I know you probably aren't, but I'm a baby boomer. And I have had experiences that I want them to learn from. And I think we as elders, as parents, need to sit our millennial kids down and say, look, you've got to learn this, because nobody else is going to take the time that I will to help you understand this. No, you don't need to buy a $40,000 car at 27 years old. No. Put your money somewhere, like buy yourself an income property. Do something that you're going to have. And I don't think enough of us are doing that with our offspring. And it could be that they're not sure about what to say to their grown children. But I think it's a real problem that we are not communicating through these 4 generations that are alive now, for the workforce.
Yeah.
We can share.
I think that a lot of times it's a delivery issue. I think that sometimes, my parents are baby boomers. And so I have millennials, and then I've got 3 millennials and a Zer.
Okay.
So the conversations that my parents as baby boomers want to have with them, and the way that they want to have it, is what I try to get across to them, to both my parents and to my children, saying, it's great information, but the delivery is what closes people's ears. And so baby boomers a lot of times will preach. And so because you all's parents preached, that's what they did. And it was the do as I say, don't ask me questions, just know that this is good information. That worked for you all. It worked for my Generation X. We listened to the baby boomers. And so for the most part, kind of followed along with what we were told. But then here come these millennials and Zers that want to question and challenge everything. They want everything to make sense. And so we have to find the balance in the difference in our personalities, because if we don't convey the information, it's going to get lost. And so the knowledge that you all have is crucial. We need it. And the millennials and the Zers don't even recognize that they need it, because they think that they can just take over the world. And they don't recognize that if they don't have a good understanding of our past, it's going to get repeated.
And I agree.
Slavery.
And while I pain and I cry about the the situation of Black people in the United States today, I'm encouraged that the millennials, the young Black people, are understanding for the first time what we've been saying about discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
and are engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And we are having some serious conversations
Yes.
about how are you going to structure your life given this circumstances. This is the worst of times, and it can be the beginning of the best of times if we
Yep.
learn from it. If we
Yep.
learn from it, that we need to come together, we need to put aside petty differences, and again, invest in ourselves, understand that everything that looks good isn't good for you,
Right.
and begin to think about collective strength. We got to come back together as a community. The whole suburban thing, we all have to be on the same page moving forward, especially given what we're going through right now.
You know that I visited New Orleans, and so I had my own personal tour guide, and who is from New Orleans, and I think about Hurricane Katrina. And I thought about how I remember my grandparents talking about Hurricane Betsy.
Mm.
And I said, I look at the conditions that are still existing in New Orleans, but then I look at the same thing that's going on in parts of Atlanta, parts of a lot of major cities where we are being moved out. And those areas are being inhabited by people who were not the people who were originally there.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Tuskegee, where I'm from, and I think about, some individual that came in supposedly from a neighboring county city, a white gentleman, and they said he bought up like 40 properties. And I'm like, in Tuskegee, y'all, this should not be happening. And so I think that this pandemic is going to provide access for a lot of people to some property. And it's going to be unfortunate because some people are going to lose their properties. But as Black people, we need to be positioned to acquire, because one thing that there is not being produced anymore of, and that is land. And so we have to be positioning ourselves to acquire land and to just start to think differently than we have, and not use as an excuse, well, I didn't know, because someone like you who is knowledgeable has the information and can teach us so that we can become educated. So let's talk about how people can reach you and what are the services that you are offering.
Okay, you made me think about it. I was a mortgage broker for about 5 years before the recession. I forgot about that business. The recession. I worked on mortgages for self-employed people. And so that's a kind of a niche area. And then when the recession came, all of my investors went out of business. So I had to shut it down. So you win some, you lose some.
Right.
I have a website called www.justaskdoctori.com. And it's doctor/I.com.
Say it again for me, Dr. Iris, because I'm going to post it.
Okay. www.justaskdr-I.com. And then my email address is iris@justaskiris.com. And I do marketing research, consulting, training, working a lot with all of these programs that are supposedly out to help small businesses right now. I've been doing some consulting with those. But I feel like, in whatever time I have left here on earth, I've got to empty out my purse of all of the information that I've learned in 4 or 5 different industries. And over the last 40, 50 years, working in the working world. And so I'll talk to people and share information. and try to help them as best I can.
And what I want people to realize is that you don't come for free. This is a service that you provide, and so we have to be in a place where we learn to invest in ourselves, because a lot of times we are looking for, we want a guarantee and we want something for free, and so we have to start to think differently in terms of accessing information, because we would not go to our Caucasian countertype and ask them for a discount and this, that, and the other. That's not what we would do. And if they said this is what the cost is, we would try to find the money. And so I want to encourage people, you are available for consultation, but there is going to be a fee that's associated with it. But you are such a wealth of knowledge. And I think that if we ever get to a point where we truly understand that if we start to invest in ourselves and in our community on a different level, then we can really attain and grow Black wealth. And so it's not going to come overnight.
Definitely not tomorrow.
No, it's not going to be a quick turnaround, but I am still encouraged. Now, I'm like the kids. I want you to stop talking. You sound like my daddy. Stop talking about when you leave here. We know we all got to go sometimes, but we ain't got to keep talking about it, because we just want to be able to love on you while you are here, and to, soak up as much information as we can, because you've had a lot of experiences, and I am just so thankful and blessed that, I just reached out to you on Facebook and you responded to me. And so I am forever grateful for that day, because I plan for you to be in my life for the rest of my life.
It's not over. It's just beginning.
It's just beginning.
We are going to connect the dots together.
Yes. And
as long as we can, because when you see something and it reminds you of something else, please contact me. We'll sort it out.
Yeah, we'll sort it out. And so I appreciate you so much. So tell the people what's next for you. What all you got going on?
Well, I'm going to get back to my, as I say, my typewriter and start writing again. That's really my first love is words. Back in the day, going to the library and getting a book was a big deal. And so words are my first love. So I'm going to start writing again about this period and what I'm seeing, perceiving environment. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue to do training and consulting, teaching. I love teaching, entrepreneurship. And so I'm just going to try to empty, like I said, empty my purse full of all the information that I've been able to accumulate over the last 30 years.
So will you be teaching online?
Yes, I've been teaching online for a long time, and it's pretty much the standard now in a lot of universities now. So there won't be any different. Everybody thinks that teaching online is easier. It is not easier to me. Because you have more students, you have more back and forth trying to make sure that you reach that point of understanding. Not like meeting after class and talking. You can't do that.
Right.
So it takes a lot out of you to teach online, but I just love it, and I'll continue doing that.
So this is Wisdom Wednesday. So as we wrap up, what are your nuggets of wisdom that you want to share with our viewers about anything?
I only have one recommendation, and I've had it for the last 50 years. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It works. It will bring you friends. It will bring you loyalty. You will be respected. You will have dignity. People will always have nice things to say about you. And I think that's what I've always tried to do. That was what my mom and dad preached. Don't treat anybody the way you don't want to be treated. And just think about it. What if that was going on in Washington, D.C. today? or Portland or Seattle or Minneapolis or even Columbus, Ohio, or Atlanta.
You know what I think is so hard sometimes, Dr. Cooper, is that these latter generations, they have tried to redefine the word respect. And a lot of times people's concept is, I will give you respect if you are respectful to me. And that's not the way we were raised. You give respect, period. And so who somebody else is and how they treat you is about who they are. It's not about who you are.
Right.
Because character is not fluid. And so I think that, it remains the golden rule: do unto others as you want them to do unto you, not as they do to you. Sometimes people try to rephrase it, but if we want this world to get better, we just have to do a better job of being better every single day.
That's exactly right.
Focusing less on the negativity. I've been encouraging people. I think I went 3 weeks without even turning on the news at all.
I had to detox. I had to detox too.
Yeah, because during this time period, you have to insulate yourself from the negativity that is the world. And everybody has to do that. So, spend more time with our family.
Go to the park.
Go to the park. Make sure that you educate yourself and learn something new during this time period.
Absolutely. Don't waste the time. Don't waste
the time. And connect with people on a deeper and more meaningful level, and not just on the surface, the way that we were doing when the world was so busy and chaotic. And, just do our best to become our best. That's all we got.
And because every moment is yours if you take it.
Yeah.
And do something with it.
Every moment is yours if you take it and do something with it. Well, I appreciate you so much. And
thank you. Same here.
I am going to make sure that I post your website and your email inside of this StreamYard, or I'll go back and put it on Black on the Block so that I can make sure that people know how to reach out to you.
Okay.
I just appreciate you and look forward to our continued journey, but this journey that God has given me to make sure that, through this Black on the Block platform, that we are educating and exposing, empowering entrepreneurship and economics. And so that's what it is. And I just appreciate everybody for joining us. And, Dr. Iris is still, in my book, she is Glory Food. So I guess we don't have to buy quite as much of it now, but when I think of Glory, I still think of you. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do.
So I appreciate you being here and love you so much. And you and I will connect. And I'm going to make sure that for everybody who wants to be in contact with Dr. Iris Cooper, I will post her information so that you can reach out to her directly. But just appreciate you all for being here for Wisdom Wednesday. Make sure that you join me for Couch Conversations with Dr. Adrian the Fix at 6 on Friday. Life is like a pretzel. So, I've been dealing with this car accident stuff, but I do plan to do the Fix at 6 on Friday. So love you all so much and appreciate you, Dr. I. And we'll connect.
Same here.
All right. Thank you so
much. All right.
Love you.
Bye-bye.